So in today's video, I'm going to be going through the best graphic settings to get the most FPS and to make your game look the best as possible. If you do enjoy the video, please make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get into it. So starting off, just trust me, play full screen. If you play windowed or borderless, you know, it doesn't even look good because it's not fitting your screen and your FPS drops so much. So trust me, run full screen. Just thank me later, right? Just use it. Obviously, with the aspect ratio, you want it to be native, which is most likely 16:9. That obviously just gets better FPS and just makes, obviously, the display fit the screen anyway. So obviously use that. Now, this is quite controversial because I use 1440p because I've got a decent graphics card, but you can run 1920 by 1080 or 1600 by 900. However, if we look at my game, how it looks now, it looks pretty smooth. If I drop it, then it doesn't look as good. But obviously, doing all this, yeah, it won't look as good. But your FPS will just be miles better. Like, it'll look so much better. But obviously, from this to this is quite a difference on my screen anyway. Brightness is, depending on your monitor, I recommend just chucking it at 50%. Anything like maybe 75 is going to look too bright. Anything from like 30 is just going to look way too low and it doesn't look that good. So, you know, 50 to 55, 50 to 60 will look obviously the best. So I recommend using 50 to 60% brightness. FOV, obviously, that's just a no-brainer. You want it on the most possible. So obviously on this game, it's 110. Let's say if you would chuck it on 70, this is how it looks. So this is 70. It looks absolutely horrific, so I would not play on that. Just max it out as much as possible so you can see more of your screen, and I think the game just looks better anyway, but that might just be my screen anyway. So for FOV ability scaling, so I'm going to show you the difference. So this is with it disabled, and you'll be able to tell the difference. So when you're walking around, nothing really gets, like, I wouldn't say distorted, but nothing like moves around. So let's say if I just do that whilst I'm just walking. However, when I turn it on, it kind of looks a bit weird, like everything kind of stretches out in the diagonals. So for me, I would recommend just having this disabled. I've tried it up before. I'm not a massive fan. Obviously, sprint, view, shake, motion blur, any of that, put it on minimal or disabled. Obviously on here it's only minimal, but you want it to be as low as possible. VSync, have disabled. That gives you so much input delay, it's horrible. Don't have any of that on, please. NVIDIA Reflex, enable plus boost if you have an NVIDIA card. If you don't, it doesn't matter that much, but if you do, then it gives you a lot more FPS, so have that on plus boost. Adaptive resolution FPS target, I just have this off. I don't think it really matters. So with anti-aliasing, if you want in the best FPS, obviously have it off. But it does make your game look a lot more grainy, as you can probably tell. Like, if we just have a look at that whilst I move it, you can see the, like, graininess on it. Whereas if I turn it on, it looks way smoother. So pretty much, it all depends on what GPU you have. If you want the most FPS, then turn it off. But if you're having obviously a good enough graphics card, then keep it on. But it does take up a decent amount of resources. But then again, if you have a 40 series, then I'd probably just keep it on. So textured streaming budget, this is quite optional. If you want the most FPS, have it on low. This will obviously just max out your FPS. The lower obviously you have, the higher FPS you'll get. That's just kind of common sense. But obviously, then again, everything doesn't look as good. So if you want, let's see, if I was to put on Ultra, everything looks a lot better. But then again, you can see I still get 144. However, I do have a 4070. So all depends on what GPU you have. If you think that you have a good enough one, then have it on medium to high. If it's low end, just have it on low. I wouldn't recommend going on very low. So with texture filtering, obviously, as it says, it makes, like, it depends on how good you want your game to look. So if I put it on 16x, everything will look a lot sharper on the floor, everywhere. So this is on the max, whereas if I was to turn it off, it doesn't look as good. You probably won't be able to tell on there, but on my screen I can see a relatively big difference. I usually just chuck on 8x because you don't want your GPU to be burning. But obviously, if you want the highest FPS, I'd just put it on trilinear. Obviously, with ambient occlusion quality, you want to have disabled. These on low. Spot shadow detail, just if you want that, then have it on disabled. Volumetric lighting, disabled. Dynamic spot shadow, disabled. Model detail low, map detail low. Effects, you want to just have all of these on low. You know, it all depends, to be honest, on what GPU you have and how you want your game to look. If you want it to look worse and you get higher FPS, that's completely up to you. So in terms of colorblind settings, I would have it on Tritanopia. I think that just makes everything stand out, makes everything look a lot better and easier to see. So that's obviously a bonus. But yeah, that is the best video settings that's going to give you the most FPS and to make your game look as good as possible.